There we go. Can everyone see my screen? The eternal
Yeah.
of the last few years. Cool. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about storytelling through technology, which is something that I've done again and again in a variety of different ways with agencies and my own personal work. And something that I'm very excited about. And it's something that I've luckily have become kind of known for, which is great. So today I run an agency called Sounds Fun. I am the chief vision officer, the chief technical officer, different things depending on what day of the week it is and who we're kind of speaking to. And we're a full service agency. We do, a bit of everything, no matter what it is. And we try to have fun with it, obviously. And our pitch is very much we answer conventional marketing questions in unconventional ways. I was at the Columbia School of Business on Monday, and it was really interesting to speak to, a whole bunch of CMOs, a whole bunch of folks there about the kind of current technical moment we're in. And it's really interesting because we have these conversations with clients and they'll say, oh, we're waiting to put together an AI brief or an AI project. And you kind of have to say to them, um, all your briefs are AI briefs. All your briefs are innovation briefs. Like there's this moment that we're in right now where you have this unique opportunity to apply creativity and technology in completely new ways. And, we do that again and again, and that looks very unconventional in terms of what we make and how we make it. We are lucky enough to have a history of what we call creating the future with hundreds of awards from D&AD, the Clio's, Cannes, pretty much anyone and everyone. But before I get there, I'll give you a very brief introduction to who I am and how I kind of got here. So I grew up, and we'll be able to place the accent in a second, in a very small town on the tip of Africa, very conservative. That's my old high school doing the military training. Really didn't like it. I was a very rebellious kid. I had the obligatory kind of, when I had hair, the kind of weird 90s thing that was what you did if you were a young man in the 90s. um, that's my brother. If you look at the top of the computer, there's a series of numbers written across it. That's the case number from when he was arrested by Interpol for hacking into Belgium's telephone network. So I grew up on the tip of Africa in this kind of hacker house. He was running what at the time was called a zero-day wares group, where we would mess with the phone lines, download software, the Photoshop 1, and then redistribute it through our bulletin board service to people in South Africa, basically. So my original, experience of the internet looked very much like that. And my brother was always fascinated by how it worked technically, and I was always fascinated by how it worked kind of socially, the fact that we would just try and talk to other people. And of course, that's kind of lost on young people today. The internet's ubiquitous. Talking to a stranger is meaningless, but if you were there right at the beginning, it was the most magical thing that, you could possibly experience. And especially being, stuck on the tip of Africa, in a very isolated kind of space, just being able to connect with other people through technology was incredible. And it's infused my work ever since then. And so I didn't know what else to do. So I got into advertising, and I've, had a pretty successful career in advertising. I've made all sorts of things for Mini and Levi's and Johnny Walker. I've made monuments for them, all sorts of weird and wonderful, crazy things. And along the way, I started making art outside of advertising. And just going and kind of investigating what was out on the internet, trying to subvert it in weird and wonderful ways. And one of the things that was happening in the kind of mid 2000s was the rise of blogs. Remember when blogs were a thing? That was great. Missed that. But everyone was kind of making a soccer blog or a recipe blog or something else like that. And I said, how can I subvert this to kind of create some kind of interesting storytelling? And so I created this art project called I Wrote This For You, which was a collaboration between me and this photographer in Japan, where he would send me photographs from somewhere in Japan every day of the working week, and I would write a poem or a short story or something directed at the reader. And it was just a really fun kind of creative exercise. But then it got insanely popular at some point. and kids started getting stuff from it tattooed on themselves. It kind of went around the world a few times. It ended up in a book deal. Then Harry Styles, got photographed busy reading it. And the British royal family asked if they could read one of the poems from the book at a memorial. Courtney Kardashian, two or three different Kardashians have quoted me. Steven Spielberg quoted me in a speech at the Shoah Foundation to Tom Hanks and Oprah Winfrey. That's me and Mahatma Gandhi's granddaughter, because I got invited to a thing to speak about technology and poetry there. Those are that's a choir of Eskimos singing my poetry at some jazz festival somewhere. That's me talking about the future of poetry. And that's Chuck Palahniuk, the author of Fight Club, choking me out at BookCon in New York because we shared a signing table together. And this all started because I kind of saw what blogs were, and I was like, how can I take that technology and subvert it and mess with it? And it became this really big thing. My favorite moment was when Leanne Rhymes misquoted me, a poem of mine, and I got into a fight with her on the internet. And it got so heated, it ended up in the Daily Mail. Um, and she said, well, this poem is credited to this person, and here's an image of it that says that Kurt Vonnegut wrote it. And I sent her this image of Abraham Lincoln saying, don't believe everything you read on the internet. And that upset her even more. So once you write one book, you can kind of just keep writing them and people just trust you to keep doing cool stuff. So I read a science fiction novel about time travel and time loops and different things like that. And this one was called Intentional Dissonance, and I'll ruin the ending for you. It ends as it begins. And I realized that the Amazon files at that point in time didn't really have a size limit. So I just copied and pasted the book 20 times. And so as you got to the end of the book, it started again. And that really upset some people, but it was fun. So that was cool. This is 25 Love Poems for the NSA. This is a when Edward Snowden leaked, all the documents that he leaked, one of the things that he leaked was a list of words that if they appear in combination in an email, the NSA will flag your email account and track you and keep an eye on you. So I took that list of words and constructed an entire collection of poetry using nothing but those words, then released it as a free PDF, and then people would email it to each other. And that probably upset some people. And whenever I leave and re-enter the United States, I'm always a little bit worried that someone's going to bring it up. So that was cool. I did a children's book as the pandemic kind of broke out. Kind of explaining why there was a quarantine that got translated into several languages and kind of spread around the planet a few times. And yeah, so I've done lots of really weird and interesting different stuff. And I've always had this soft spot for AI specifically. There was this incredible story I read in my early 20s about this guy called Richard Thaler, who is an AI researcher. And he did this experiment after he'd watched the movie Flatliners, where he trained a whole bunch of computers, set them up as a neural network, and trained them on Christmas carols and taught them to sing Christmas carols to each other. And he started destroying the computers figuratively one by one. And so the Christmas carols started getting distorted. And the last words of this kind of neural network that he constructed were, all men go to good earth in one eternal silent night. And what he realized when he looked at that was that it wasn't a glitch. The machine had come up with an idea. And I read that story in my 20s, and it kind of stuck with me. And so one day I got invited to join a startup called Copysmith, which was an early kind of competitor to Jarvis and Copy AI and all the other kind of automated copywriting platforms. And while I was, creating prompts on how to write ad copy for Facebook or Google banners or whatever, I realized I can do so many different things with this besides just writing ad copy. And so my mom had just passed away during the pandemic, and she was a very spiritual person. So one night I sat down and I created this kind of series of prompts in GPT-3 because ChatGPT hadn't come out yet. And I took a passage from the Bible, a passage from the Talmud, from the Tao Te Ching, from the poetry of Rumi. And I said to it, why do we suffer? And then I said, how do we overcome great challenges? And that dialogue became this book called What Makes Us Human. And that's been translated into 8 or 9 languages. It's in Malcolm Gladwell's Next Big Idea Club. And that's, another kind of thing where I've kind of looked at technology and gone, how can I, subvert this and tell stories in different ways? And that's what excites me most about all technology, really, is just kind of seeing how I can break it, how I can use it for purposes it's not really intended for. That's one of the poems from the book. This is a series of artworks I did called Fragments of Sappho, where I took the lost poetry of the poet Sappho from 2,000 years ago. A lot of her poetry survives as these kinds of individual fragments. And I took the 2 complete poems that survive and used them as a kind of prompt to complete the missing parts of the different poems. So that was really fun as well. And while I was making all this weird and wonderful art during the pandemic, Vice Media reached out and said, hey, can you help us out with a project? And I said, sure. And then they said, can you help us out with another project? And I said, sure. And they had an internal creative studio called Virtue. And eventually they were like, why don't you just move over here and just work with us? So I said, sure. And I became the global head of innovation for them. I became the global creative director on Coca-Cola specifically, and oversaw a platform for Coca-Cola called Coca-Cola Creations, which is effectively Coca-Cola's innovation-led limited edition product line that was really fun and really exciting to work on. Coming up with new flavors of Coca-Cola is a huge privilege. It's like playing drums with Phil Collins. But I'll show you a quick video of what that looks like.
And I am here to bring you the big news.
Super cool.
Chocolate Coke Starlight, I ain't there.
Yep, that's us. You're probably wondering how we got here. Well, the soda category has become infinite, and young people have more options than ever before. So how do you get them to try, or even care about, the Big Red brand that's been around since 1886?
You're shifting realities, you're becoming aware of your dear self.
You bottle the culture they care about, and give them the chance to taste something no one's ever tasted before. You take the spirit of escapism and turn it into a new kind of Coke that tastes like space. Yeah, like outer space. Then, put an AR concert with Ava Max on every can, and an entire universe around the launch. Then, you take what makes gaming gaming and turn it into a Coke that tastes like a pixel. Then release it inside a video game.
I swear, I've got the IRL one.
You take youthful imagination and bottle the taste of dreams. Then invite the world to Tomorrowland and dress them in a virtual fashion line. You give anime lovers a taste of action. In collaboration with one of the world's most beloved series, Bleach.
We're on the hunt for Coke Starlight.
We broke the internet.
Give it back! Give it back!
The stores, the press, and Gen Z's mind. People lined up around the block just to buy a Coke. People paid 10 times the price on eBay, ultimately upping brand love and sales. We took something that's been around for over 100 years and made it new, getting an entire generation to try their first Coke. That's real magic.
So technology was like central to all of that work. Every single one of those we did had some kind of innovation attached to it in some way, whether it was an augmented reality concert, or it was virtual wearables, or whatever it was always about culture and innovation kind of playing hand in hand. And we became this kind of, innovation hub for Coca-Cola, where we partnered with Niantic to create like gamified vending machines around Halloween. We activated at Coachella, creating virtual stage productions for them and their partner artists. And of course, one of the really big famous ones was the AI Coca-Cola that we did, which we co-created with AI. And we started working on that about 3 years ago. Before ChatGPT came out, before, you know, anything else, I convinced people that AI was going to be a really big thing. What was really funny about the book that I wrote, What Makes Us Human, is it came out about 2 or 3 months before ChatGPT came out. So the first half of the book tour, it was spent trying to tell people that there's this thing called AI coming and we should be aware of it and we should talk about it. And the second half of the book tour was spent telling people to sit down and calm down and everything's going to be okay. It's fine. Don't freak out. So that was pretty interesting. I'm not going to play this. This is more about the partnerships we've done with League of Legends, the AI Coke as well, but it's mostly just pretty pictures, and I want to give people time to talk and discuss things as well. This was an interesting thing we did for them, where we used machine learning and AI to effectively take a gamer's face and insert them inside our film assets. So every gamer who was interested in our League of Legends collaboration could take a picture and then insert themselves into the campaign material. You can see the AI really doesn't like my beard because this was aimed at young people and not many of them had beards. But it was loads of fun to do as well. One of the other really big things we did while we were at Vice was a project called Backup Ukraine. We had been in discussion and conversation with a startup called Polycam that allowed you to effectively use very simple technology on your phone to kind of mimic LiDAR and create three-dimensional scans of things. And a lot of game designers were using it, a lot of interior designers were using it. And it was another case where the war broke out. And I said, like, there's something that we can do with this technology, to bring awareness to what's happening, and maybe we can even help.
Сейчас закинем в метро, и мы кончились, поэтому если сбор денег снова...
What we're seeing here is an attempt by Putin to wipe out.
UNESCO is incredibly concerned, of course, and will be holding a special session. And there is great fear that Russia will try to simply wipe it out.
Talk about an app that was invented and allows presentation of
Ukraine's Minister of Culture and Information Policy. I'll note that he is inside Ukraine.
So this is Andrei Первозванный monument. I decided to scan it to preserve it forever.
These monuments, they define us. We grew up with them. We will not allow anyone to take this away from us. This is our culture.
And then about a year ago, I left Vice. Kind of wasn't sure what I wanted to do or how. And eventually some other friends who had left Vice as well said, let's try and build something. We know we work well together. And so we started Sounds Fun. Since then, we've done some incredible work with Intel, with Microsoft. We're speaking to a lot of fashion brands, a lot of technology, culture brands. We're in conversation with OpenAI, a few other folks as well. And our kind of main thesis is around culture and technology, technology that unlocks culture in powerful ways. One of the things that we've done recently was with Intel and Microsoft at Microsoft Ignite, which was an experience called The Art of AI. And what we did is we went and we found several different fine artists, including OpenAI's first artist in residence, a guy called Alexander Reben, to create experiences that investigated how the world might change, with AI embedded in the ambient environment around us and different interactions. So Alex built a sculpture that you could talk to that would turn anything you say into a haiku. So you could tell it about your breakfast burrito and it would write a haiku about your breakfast burrito, or tell it where you wanted to go on holiday and it would do that. Another artist created a generative AI city connected to a computer vision camera, enabled camera, and it would build and rebuild cities around you based on your presence, based on the amount of people around you, to kind of provoke a conversation around presence and artificial intelligence. And the last piece was by a guy called Sia Parmigiani, who created a generative AI vending machine where you could walk up to it and speak about how you're feeling, what you're in the mood for, and it would vend a specific digital art product to you, kind of pointing towards a future where the things that we buy are as individualized as we are.
Interplay of AI and artistic intuition, one embarks on a delicate dance of creation.
As our environments change and evolve around us, artists are really one of the first people to adopt new technologies and see how they can subvert them and use them for their own artistic will.
I believe Gen AI will redefine the idea of creativity as we know it, allowing us to come up with bigger, bolder ideas in a fraction of the time.
So we work with really big brands, we work with startups. One of them, Trellis, is focused on the future of the book. How does AI and large language models change the way that we read? This is, shifted a little bit in terms of being very focused on education. We've all used ChatGPT, or if you're a student, you've used ChatGPT potentially to quiz you. This is a kind of app and an education layer on top of books that you can apply. We built out another product with them called Bespoke, which was a generative AI podcast. You could tell it what you were interested in and how long you had. So if you had 10 minutes, you could say, I really want to learn about the Spanish Civil War or whatever it was, and it would create that audio experience for you. This is the Eon Arc, which is something we're busy building for the Berkowitz Institute, and it's a time machine. So effectively what you do is you interact with this thing. It asks you a series of questions, and based on your responses, it creates a chatbot based on your personality, based on your responses. We then take that data and infuse it in glass, with the intention that that glass would last for 1 billion years. And so at some point in the far distant future, with someone with the right understanding, they could have an interaction with you at that point in time. We work with a charity called Jasiri, focused on democratizing access to AI for entrepreneurs in Africa as well. A lot of our conversations right now with clients are around something or a product that we offer called Sounds Right, which is specifically focused on how do you innovate in a way that makes cultural sense because there's so many different ways to innovate right now, and a lot of them don't land very well. You know, there's so many opportunities to make incredible mistakes with this technology, and very public mistakes often when you're a brand. This is an invite that we built that goes out to, you know, employees of different brands or whatever, and then we come and we speak basically.
An AI chatbot has gone rogue.
He convinced the AI to agree to sell him a Chevy Tahoe for $1.
Levi's is responding to backlash over its plan to use artificial intelligence to have more diverse models.
What the Pictures on the website were AI generated. The reality was a little different.
They violated the intellectual property of Mr. Carlin to sell their video.
Why can't we use AI for good instead of just ripping off artists?
It's really, really important that we get this right.
Hello, my name is Sophia.
Welcome to the future, people. This is not real. Absolutely ridiculous how far we've come in 1 year.
An AI study that reveals the evolution needed to become the greatest of all time.
Fans created an AI-generated place called Gag City.
Thanks, Barnes.
We were able to take John's voice and get it pure through this AI.
We believe that consent is the way forward for this stuff, and it just so happens that we actually consent.
The video is cut off there for some reason. I apologize for that.
An AI chatbot.
So, you know, at that Columbia Business School conference on Monday, you know, there was this kind of refrain from a few different people that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And this is a series of principles that I'm kind of sticking to in my day-to-day approach to what I'm doing and what I'm saying to others and sharing. And I think that's worth keeping in mind. There's a lot of hype in this space, obviously. That doesn't diminish the scale of the opportunity of what we can do as marketers and brands and people who work in marketing and in partnership with brands. One thing I try and come back to again and again is that the same things we've always done are not as exciting as the things we've never been able to do before with AI. I think that's an important principle to kind of keep in mind. Obviously, AI is an incredible tool for efficiency. It's an incredible tool for process, but it enables so many new things that I believe we should all kind of, you know, be thinking about just a little bit more, because that's when people get really excited and inspired around this technology. I'll stop here, and we can kind of chat, and you can ask me questions, and I'll do my best to answer. And I realize there was a lot, and I've kind of just tried to squeeze what I usually do in a one-day workshop into 30 minutes and just wow, and so I apologize for that.
Yeah, well, thanks, Iain. The Ukraine piece, especially, I know is really moving to a lot of us who still can't fathom what's going on there, and seeing at least just some way for technology to use a force for good. And but it was also very telling, because there was like a reaction to some of the brand work too, that it's like, okay, like you're selling more, you're selling more like sugared water here too, and where you went at the end there, as far as this lens of doing something that you just couldn't do before, like, is it? I mean, I'd imagine that you'd love to do more of the, like, force for good work where you find it, but like, there's we all have jobs to do as marketers, and most of us like aren't picking and choosing, and I had this conversation with at a previous agency that, like, they want to be known for something, or way bigger than ourselves. I'm like, we're selling soda and toothpaste and mouthwash. I mean, like, there's no higher purpose. We're putting a lot of food on the table here, and we're like trying to steer those brands the best way possible. I'm wondering if there's any more you could share on, like, even just what makes you decide first, will you take on an assignment or not, and then when you've got something that is like that you really want to do with them.
I'm terribly worried that the collection of work that I've shown suggests that I'm incredibly picky about the kinds of things that I'll do. And obviously a collection of work is, I'm only showing you the best things I've done. I'm not showing um, the from when I was a young person in advertising, the brochures and the gondola ends in retail stores and the infomercials and everything else that you do as a creative person in marketing and advertising. And I'm a huge fan of capitalism and money and making ends meet in whatever way that we can. So I obviously, do I bring some kind of moral sensibility to my work? I think we all do. I think that we're good people. I think marketers get a bad rap, in terms of who we are. But I think, the thing that I would encourage all of us to do is to kind of try and dent the universe in whatever small way we can and pick out, the space for culture in whatever way we can. There's tremendous space, for process and efficiency and all these different things that AI enables. But there was a great slide the CMO of MasterCard brought up when he was presenting on Monday at the Bright conference, which was just the words, "We're here to sell beer," which is apparently a line that Anheuser-Busch has up in their boardroom, because obviously they do incredible sponsorships and they do, concerts and sporting events and all sorts of weird and wonderful, crazy things, but they're there to sell beer, And I think we're here to sell whatever we're here to sell. We're here to, create emotional interventions with people that inspire them to change attitudes and behaviors. Whether that's through a automated Facebook ad or it's through something at Coachella or something, anywhere in between those 2 points, and we all get to work on those things every day with whatever's in front of us. So, I think especially with I feel like the role of a chief marketing officer within a brand right now has expanded, and someone was talking about this on Monday as well, like from just marketing to operationalizing the business on a kind of broader level. And I think AI has a role to play there as well, beyond just marketing, going like, how can we sell things in new ways? How can we create access to our brand in new ways? How can we enable people in new ways? That example of I'm going to get the rapper wrong. The rapper who had the generative AI community with Gag City, I can't remember exactly who it was, but that seemed very organic. But I mean, it's an example of like how we can enable people through AI to engage with the culture we have around our brand. So, which is just me babbling at this point and carrying on. I apologize.
Yeah, Nicki Minaj.
There we go. Thank you. Yeah. There's a question, are there pure social impact brands taking on this tech? In other words, a nonprofit like Amnesty International? I would assume so. I think that one of my big concerns right now is the bad rap that AI is getting. There's I think Dove has a campaign right now against like the unrealistic expectations of beauty around AI. There's headlines every day you saw in that video. And I think, one of my things is to kind of demonstrate to brands, institutions, platforms, whether that's Amnesty International or someone else, and go, there's incredible potential in this tool when used in the right way to engage with people. We are busy with something with Human Rights Watch. Hopefully, we've got a proposal that we're putting together, which I can't really say too much more about, but yeah.
And I am very curious to hear your take on on creative industry jobs, and like what do you think the impact will be with Gen AI?
So I'm not a cynic, but I'm not an idealist either. And I think that's an important thing to bring to this tool and to this technology, especially when you're talking to clients, because the most helpful thing that you can give them is a realistic point of view. And so when it comes to jobs and creativity and, you know, creative jobs within the industry, I think it is already having a significant impact. Like I grew up as a copywriter, you know, that was my first job. And, you know, I have friends who never kind of left that lane, and they're feeling the pinch, you know, in a very real way. Like in terms of like, you know, jobs are disappearing, they're being paid less. That's significant, you know. This is a very transformative tool on a societal level, and so we have to have very big conversations around it. At the same time, what I'm very excited about is the potential for small groups of people to do incredible things at scale. And I see that being unlocked more and more and more and more. You know, if I look at Vice and what happened to Vice and the kind of fallout from that, there are all these weird and wonderful groups of people who are incredibly talented, incredibly skilled, who have gone on to find, you know, to start companies, to found different things that are really interesting. And it's, you know, 2 or 3 or 4 of them. And these tools are enabling that in a very, very, very big way. And I think that's exciting. I think that's really exciting for business, for opportunity, for individuals. So yeah.
Great. Well, we've got more questions coming in, and some of them really they relate a bit also as far as like what your team looks like to start, and then go from there. But, yeah.
There's 4 of us. And then we have partners, you know, all over the place. In terms of the 4 of us, it's me, my creative designer, visualizer partner, Martin, whose music videos you should definitely watch. He's incredible. A head of accounts who maintains relationships for us. And then our executive producer, Alex, who keeps our promises and builds, you know, what we need to build a lot of the time, because we do a lot of building, obviously. Otherwise, you know, we use the tools that we have available. We access the partners that we have around us, and we've built up an army of incredible suppliers over time that we lean on and that we understand and we have a good relationship with. You know, in terms of the rest of the question, the use case applies to bigger brands with dollars behind. How is your narrative with, you know, smaller brands? I think that's the thing. Like the thing that makes ChatGPT or Stable Diffusion or Midjourney or, as of today, Udio, which is the new music tool that everyone's freaking out about. Yesterday was Suno, obviously. But, you know, these things enable access pretty cost effectively, you know, in terms of this technology. I think the challenge for smaller brands is, how can you be brave with this? How can you do something that's bold and interesting and sensitive, you know, obviously to the conversation? I don't think you need to do AI work specifically. I think you need to do something brave that people will talk about. You know, with the Coca-Cola work, Coca-Cola's most significant asset is their logo. And with the Coca-Cola Creations work that they let us do, they said you can mess with it. You can pixelate it. You can draw it as graffiti if you want to. And that was them just being brave, and being brave costs nothing, you know? So, yeah.
Thanks. And we'll hear from Kate and then Mark. And I apologize if you see me taking a bite with my daughter home from school for cities closed for the end of Ramadan. She was kind enough to cook me lunch during this. So
hey,
I want to be polite and at least sample this while it's warm. But Kate, why don't you chime in while I take my first
yes,
bite?
Interns are always welcome on these calls. So my question was a little bit harder to type. So you had mentioned earlier you were inspired by this Christmas Carol AI arrangement where they turned off one computer and at the end the AI had an idea. And I think when I'm talking to my clients about the future of creative, and why not to run screaming from the building, it's because AI is great at tasks that are repetitive and non-human and data-centric and all of those things that our minds are not as good at, but that our minds are good at being creative and having ideas and thinking about the future, as opposed to looking backward through the training data and providing synthesized responses. So I'm just curious about the idea of machines having ideas and what that means for you and how it fits into your vision of the future of creative.
Sure. So I don't believe these tools are creative. It's what is the term is stochastic parrot. At the same time, one of my favorite phrases of it might be a stochastic parrot, but if it quacks like a duck and looks like a duck, maybe it's a duck actually. The way that the large language models work is it's predictive. It's predicated on everything that's been written before in this massive corpus of text. And if you go to ChatGPT and say, write my new brand manifesto for me, it'll give you the same brand manifesto, at least similar, as some accountant in Ohio would put together. And my apologies to Ohio. I don't know your beautiful country enough to know if that's insulting the way I put that or not. But you have to come to this tool with an idea. You have to come to it with creative insight, because that's what you bring as a human being. There's a degree of insight that you naturally have that is not written down in a book, and that's how these machines work. They work with what's been written down. And you have so much more data inside of you as a human being, the things that you see, you feel, you smell, you taste, that just cannot be captured in words, And so my approach to these things is these tools are incredible, they're wonderful, but you are the creator in this instance, and you have to bring your insight and your talent and your creativity to these things for them to actually be nearly as effective as you want them to be. I was at a conference in Spokane, Washington last week, the Conference on College Composition and Communication, which is, considering it's a bunch of writing professors, a terrible name for a conference. But it was about, teaching writing to kids in the age of large language models. And I was there to, speak about my book and to speak about writing and everything else. And one of the things I really tried to land with them is like, you can get ChatGPT to write the first draft of your essay, but you're doing yourself a massive disservice, because if there's anything that technology teaches us, it's that good thinking is good writing and good writing is good thinking. We often don't know what we think until we start writing it down. And so there are some tasks for which this technology is incredible, and some tasks where it's just not as good, and it won't ever be as good, because we bring so much, to the table in terms of who we are. Rob has a question in terms of a bill of materials, how the sourcing text selection goes. We speak to everyone and anyone. We have teams in Australia, LA, South Africa, all over the place, and it's an ongoing process depending on the job at hand. And then I think there were more questions as well.
Yeah, and Mark, I know, wanted to chime in as well. So
yeah. Iain, first of incredible work. A lot of what you showed a lot of sort of the intersection of film and gaming world, metaverse technologies. I've been working in Unreal Engine for a long time, and in a different world than marketing, and I've done a lot of research in how AI affects anything 3D generation in Unreal Engine. So your Polycam example for Ukraine, I didn't know about that. A super cool project. How important for marketers and agencies and brands do you see that sort of easier merging of the two universes? How you used to create video content or marketing content, where now all of a sudden you potentially need to reuse some of those ideas or creative assets that you've created for a video game installation or special event installation. Where do you see this going in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think that there's a bit of a thank you for a great question. I think that there's a bit of a misunderstanding within the broader kind of non-marketing community, like kids who get access to Pico or Runway or whatever, and they go, look, I've put together this Adidas spot or this Nike ad or whatever it is, and it's got 10,000 upvotes, and everyone's like, oh, the ad industry is dead. And you can tell no one involved that has ever sat in an edit suite at 3 o'clock in the morning eating a cold grilled cheese sandwich while you argue about whether you want to move the can this much this way or add a vignette or touch it up or whatever. The nature of what we do is so precise and so focused, and generative AI just isn't there yet. It's great at covering ground. It's great at, putting together storyboards, mock-ups, like all these different tools that otherwise would have taken us a long time, and anything that allows us to cover more creative ground is good. The best way to come up with a good idea is to come with a lot of ideas. And this tool allows us to explore those ideas really, really, really quickly. I would not show a piece of AI generated content to an audience unless it was absolutely perfect. I don't think it's there yet. So a lot of the stuff that we do, it's not AI generated. It's AI generated in the internal creative processes. Then we'll work with animators, directors, whoever it is, to get that thing absolutely perfect and right. So that's kind of where I am on that, I guess.
Thanks.
Yeah,
yes.
and
cyborgs, exactly.
And there were some interesting comments by Gene. Like my favorite word in the AI field right now is yet, right? And
yes,
picking up on that with original thought, right? Like when does that? Again, just for thoughts that to most of the 8 billion of us seem original.
we tend, when we're doing like education workshops and sessions like that, we have a slide always at the front that says this is the worst it'll ever be, and we come back to that again and again and again. Like that's the thing. Like a year ago, ChatGPT was mind-blowing. Now we're building films, and the music has gone from being kind of glitchy, it sounds kind of like music, to it is music, and it's catchy music. And what does that mean? I'm going to put my email address in the chat. If anyone would like to chat more, you're welcome to reach out to me there, or on LinkedIn or anywhere else. Yeah, any other questions or comments?
Gavin, go for it.
Hey, Ian, amazing conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time. So as someone who's walked those Coca-Cola halls with my friend David, trying to proselytize what's coming and, risk the brand and end up with an amazing client who says brave statements. It's interesting to hear them talk about the Spencerian script being an open play. Last I heard, that was like a board level conversation. Was there any... And it's interesting, I also see other brands taking original expressions of brands. So in many ways, it's the Coke principles applied to the nth degree, right? They're taking liberty with hand-drawn versions from India to show you that Coke really is ubiquitous. But I just wonder, as you start to talk about this, it really is a faster horse moment, right? Like this is warp speed meets what is the quantification of how speed and travel is manifest today. We almost hurt ourselves by the boxing in of what is obvious. That to me is an interesting example of that. Coke throwing out the app, the only thing more sacred than that is the secret ingredient, right? Like to crowdsource the version of that might be the 2030 version, because let's just go where no one else has imagined to go. And indeed, the provocation of it creates the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think it was last week or the week before they dropped that new campaign, which was just hand-drawn Coca-Cola signage.
Yeah.
So again, that this goes beyond, it's not really about AI. AI is just an incredible territory to explore, to just being brave as a brand and going like, what are our sacred cows, and how do we reevaluate that? Because, we're in this insane moment in culture where, the monoculture is effectively dead. There is no digital town square anymore. Kids aren't on Facebook. Some of them are on Instagram. Some of them are on Discord. Some of them, are just specifically on certain Telegram channels. And so figuring out how you reach those audiences in powerful ways often requires you to step outside of your comfort zone, which can be many different things.
Well, and just the idea too that everything is inherently derivative. That's one of my major ahas, David, having joined a half a dozen of these sessions. You know, you don't really kind of appreciate that. And I made a joke in the comments. Some people's derivative is other people's brilliance, right? Like a lot of advertising is someone did something phenomenal with pet food. Let's go redo it in, curtain liners, right? Like the idea that there's innovation that happens in pockets sporadically. We're all as guilty of the next of, trying to keep up, but sometimes it's just as good to do something different that is a lateral move in a category or with a client that's, totally unexpected. But anyway, thank you. Appreciate it.
I mean, how many times have you been to a restaurant in another city or state or country and you're like, why can't they just open up like here, right? Like the derivative thing would be amazing, right? Like those
totally.
donuts I had in Portland, Oregon, like they'd have lines down the block on the Lower East Side, right?
Selective derivision is such a thing. But anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Gavin. Any last questions? We've got Ian's info here. I think we're at a good stopping point before we get down too many more rabbit holes. But Iain, I'm thrilled to just even learn more of your story. I didn't get the full full presentation before, and hearing more where you're coming from, just so fascinating and inspiring, and I'm excited to collaborate where Iain and I might have a couple things up our sleeves that we're talking about in terms of AI Marketers Guild, and sounds fun getting to work more together. And as you can see, this will be like a dream assignment for me, and I think for all of us to be able to be more involved and collaborate together. So thank you so much, Iain. Thanks everyone for being here. Look forward to the conversations that come out of this from everyone here.
Thank you.
This was awesome.